Welcome back to Mornings. Would you believe that by the year 2030 we will be living to the age of 120 and that China will have become the world's largest English-speaking country in the world? These are a few of Morris Miselowski's predictions, a future forecaster, and he's watching these global trends. He joins us. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Kerri-Anne.
How do you determine future trends?
Really, it's a matter of keeping abreast of what's coming up. For me, it's working backwards to work forwards. So like a weather forecaster in many ways, it's a matter of understanding what's come before. And to me, I call it the ologies, the sociology, the anthropology. So understanding what we do as a human race and then looking at what's coming up. And I tend to spend most of my time around 2020, 2025 for my clients. So looking at what the innovations are likely to be given what we know now, and then thinking about them and saying, well, if these innovations are going to come true, how will we play on them? What will we make out of them?
OK. One of your predictions, by the year 2030, we'll be living to the age of 120. Have I got that right?
Absolutely. Isn't that fabulous? The Australian Bureau...
What are we going to look like? That's what I'm scared of.
This is true. I've already worn out what I've got.
So 2030, I mean, that's not that far off.
It isn't, is it? And the Australian Bureau of Statistics, so if we take them as being a grounding, they claim that in the year 2040 we're going to live to at least 104. I'm saying it's much stronger than that because given the technology I'm seeing, the advances in medicine, the need that we have, the desire we have to live longer. So we're already starting to live to the 80s and 90s quite comfortably. So moving through once we get our stem cell research, once we get to know our DNA better, once we start putting together those medical advances, living to 120, 130 and beyond is not impossible.
Well, that is socially is just a whole other set of questions. But also you discuss, and I guess it's part of the age, a third of diseases will be cured or certainly addressed.
Well, they'll be tamed, if nothing else. So if we go back 100 years, we used to be very worried, as we needed to be, about tuberculosis, about polio, and they certainly had big inroads into our society. It's the same moving forward over the next 20 or 30 years. We are thankfully beginning to understand what causes a lot of those ailments, and the medical profession is now able to not only mask them, but they're able to understand them, and using nanotechnology, they're able to build things that can go into the body that can make those things futile.
Amazing. And also 60% of the jobs by 2025 have not been created.
I think so. And if not so much the jobs, certainly the tasks that they do. My son has recently done, he's in year 10, he's recently done a profession. So he's looked at what he might do over the next 10 or 12 years as a career. The guidance counsellor that talked to him talked about professions like cost accountants, like actuaries. They're all wonderful professions, patent lawyers, but if we look forward 10 or 15 years, we're not really going to need all of those skills. In fact, many of those skills will be part of somebody else's jobs. And I'm talking about the old days, perhaps, where we used to have stenographers, where we used to have typists and typing pools, and we used to have people answering phones full-time. We don't really need those as full-time careers anymore. They're a part of someone else's jobs.
So what sort of jobs haven't been created yet?
My absolute favourite is what's called a transhumanist engineer. A transhumanist engineer, and there are a few of them floating around, is somebody that's going to work in a workplace that's going to blend robots and humans together. Now, I'm not talking bionic sense, they're not going to implant them, but they're going to look at the tasks that need to be done in that organisation, and they're going to say, well, this is a task better done by robots, this is a task better done by humans. How do we integrate the two of them to work well together? So I think that's one of the most wonderful ones around.
Another example?
There'll be a whole lot of jobs around the notion of retirement. So we're seeing jobs coming up now where people are going to help other people plan for their retirement. If we take
how old is retirement then?
Retirement moving forward is actually an interesting thought, because if we take the progression of 130 years as being a median age, I'm predicting that within about 20 to 30 years, people will be working routinely up until about 70 and even into their early 80s. Now, not necessarily full-time, because our workforce will change as well. So we're going to see a mixture of full-time jobs, we're going to see a mixture of part-time and casual jobs, and also project-driven jobs, so where people come in just to do a task.
Yes.
And then leave and maybe not go back into the workforce, maybe go back in to take another task. So that blend. So I think certainly around 50, 60, 70-year-olds, I think that's the kind of thing that they'll be doing. Not so much working full-time, but taking on task or project-driven work.
China, you've got a view on this?
Absolutely. When we talk about China, we're really talking about language. One of the most interesting things that we talk about is the fact that in the year 2020, China will be the largest English-speaking country in the world. It's phenomenal. If we look at it today, if I asked most people, and I tend to do that on stage, what the largest English-speaking country is, most people come up with America. In fact, it's not. At the moment, it's India.
Wow.
So if we move forward, I mean, India has about 350,000 English speakers at the moment. USA has...
Well, we talk to them all on the phone on our research.
Absolutely. And many of them are telemarketers.
Yes, exactly.
That's a whole different argument. China has around 300,000 English-speaking people at the moment. USA has about 296,000. If we take that forward to 2020, China's going to have about 491 billion people. Million people, I should say, speaking English. India will have 384 million, and USA is back to 305. So if you look at that, you begin to wonder what else China's capable of. And the other interesting thing out of that is that Mandarin is going to be our second most spoken language in the world by 2020 for the same reason.
Extraordinary. Does this sort of future frighten you? How do we take this at whatever age we are now? And let's assume we're going to be around for 2025 and 2030. How do we view this, and how do we use this information to improve our life?
I'm an eternal optimist, so it doesn't frighten me at all. In fact, I think what it does is make the quality of life for most of us far better. And there's certainly an argument about the Western world and the rest, so that's a whole different argument for a different day. I think what we need to do is we need to take the challenge that it gives us. It gives us the ability to make our lives better, to make our lives easier. Hopefully it gives us the ability not to have to go through a lot of the medical issues that up until now we've had to, given that many of the cancers will disappear, given that Alzheimer's is likely to disappear, MS is most probably going to come off the scene in the next 20 or 30 years because we have the cures for that. Our life will become far, if not easier, far better, far more enjoyable. And what we need to do then is we need to figure out what we're going to do for the remaining 50 years of our lives, which are extended.
Wonderful. Fascinating future, and let's hope we can all grasp it and enjoy it. Morris, terrific. Thank you.
Thank you very much.